Hello. How's everybody doing out there? Okay. So this is the Monster Kid Radio presents a round of the Classic Five here at Kaiju Online. Before we talk about what the Classic Five is or what Monster Kid Radio is, I want to thank publicly here, and I'm sure everybody else has done this on other panels. Kyle, you've done an amazing job putting this thing together. So thank you so much for everything you've done for the Kaiju community and for Kaiju Online. I think Kyle's probably listening, so thank you, sir. My hat's off to you.
Amazing job.
So my name is Derek M. Cook, as you can see on the screen here, and I am joined by two of my semi-regular or irregular, I think you guys are irregular guests of my Monster Kid Radio podcast. I am talking with Anthony Wendel, who is labeled appropriately, Anthony Wendel, up there to that side of my screen. And then next to him is Stephen D. Sullivan. They are both authors. They are both huge Kaiju fans. I've become better friends with Anthony through Monster Kid Radio. Stephen I already knew. They're both great, and I want to thank them both for being here with me here during this Monster Kid Radio live Classic 5 game. Anthony, you've got some books set up there. Tell me about those real quick, man.
Yes, these are two of my novels. Of course, we have the one that got me onto your show with or you helped me find the publisher for. With because you knew about my love of giant monsters, and I had a book in mind. This is the Handbook for Surviving a Giant Monster Attack. All the little bits of information you need to help you be able to survive, and just in case a giant mutated radioactive hamster finds a way to appear in your front lawn. And next to it is my new book, The Idea of What Happens If Two of the Worst Films Ever Made Had a Crossover Sequel. This is Santa Claus Conquers Manos, the Hands of Fate.
Fantastic. And Steve, I saw you reaching over. Did you grab a copy of your book?
I did. You know, I managed to get Godzilla and Gamera up here, wherever they are. There we go.
Yeah.
It's reverse things. There's Gamera, Burning Gamera, and Godzilla, and I've got a Tingler and a Queen of Snakes shawl. But yeah, no, I reached over and I grabbed a copy of my book, Kaiju Attack, which is a giant monster story set in the 1960s. And anyone that enjoys classic Godzilla films is going to totally dig this, and you can find it online at Amazon and other cool places like that. So print or ebook.
Fantastic. So and they're both available on Amazon, print, or as I like to say, Undead Tree editions, as well as ebook. Yeah, and they both have other projects they're working on. So again, thanks for taking some time.
And I have a Manos book too, of course. That Manos, the Hands of Fate. Yeah, I have two. One of which won the award for best adaptation from movie or comics or anything that year. So when it came out, so Manos, the Hands of Fate. It's a laugh. If you want a scare, there's a scary one too.
That's right. It even beat a Star Wars book that year, which was pretty darn cool.
Book. So it was not up against weak competition.
So we are here to play a round of the Classic Five. Now, the Classic Five is a game that we play on every episode of Monster Kid Radio, when I remember, where I have a literal deck of cards here. Each one of these cards, and it's an actual deck, real cards here, ladies and gentlemen. And each one of these cards has a this or that, which movie do you prefer style question on them. There are no wrong answers, and there is a Kaiju expansion. So I am pulling some questions from our Kaiju deck here. We're going to get through 5 questions. If there's more time, maybe we'll do a few more. And I believe there's even a live chat available over on YouTube. So viewers, if you want to play along, you know where to do it. Just hop over to YouTube and take part in the chat. I'll try to keep an eye out for that, and I think Kyle's kind of watching behind the scenes as well. Steve and Anthony, I will call on you when it's your turn so that we don't talk on top of each other. This is live. Are you guys ready to play a round of the Classic Five with me and Godzilla here?
Totally.
Let's do this.
Now, these cards are available online as well for sale. You can pick them up over through DriveThruRPG by heading over to tinyurl.com/MKRClassic5, and that is Classic 5, the number 5, not spelled out. Okay, card number 1, and I'm going to start with Anthony because he's the one in the upper corner of the screen here. Anthony, what is your favorite Kaiju era? Showa, what we sometimes call the Heisei era, or the Millennium era? Or I guess now we're in the Legendary era too.
Oh, you start me off hard. I've got to say, I really love Heisei. Really has a special place for me because it just not only did it have the shared universe, I mean, all of Toho has shared universe, picking elements and stuff from what they've used over the years and incorporating it into their storytelling, but Heisei tried its hardest to make a constructive linear plot, even though there were some hiccups. I mean, they found a way to jump the shark in a series with giant cybernetic chickens and people that live underneath Easter Island. But when I'm talking, of course, about Godzilla versus King Ghidorah with time travel has no place in Godzilla. I stand behind that. But still, there's some great moments in Heisei, and there's no genre where you can't find something good out of the movies themselves. Just personally, I got a lot of love for some of the cinematic moments they achieved with the Heisei series.
Fair enough. All right, Steve, what do you think?
I'm going with Showa. It was the era that I was born into. It was the era I first saw them in. It contains the original Godzilla and Gojira, of course, and three of my favorite of all of the Godzilla movies. And I don't know if we'll talk about those now or later, but there may be more questions, so maybe I want to save that. But I have favorites in every era, and actually Millennium would be my second favorite era, even though I know that wasn't the question, because there's a number. Yeah, there's just something about those that I really like. The Heisei era is a little, I don't know, a little loosey-goosey. They're a little goofier, I think, in some ways than the Millennium era. But I'm going to go with Showa because, you got Godzilla, Mothra, Rodan, King Ghidorah all appearing for the first time.
Well, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to play along too, and it's my game, so I'm going to make the rules. I'm going to give you two answers. For the Godzilla stuff, I love the Showa era just because it's the original. There's some camp that comes into it. I love seeing the man in suit. I like seeing the seams and the wires. That's just my bag. However, I love the Gamera series from the 90s. So if I was going to say Godzilla, Showa. Gamera, the 90s era. I know there's been some talk about not calling it the Heisei era anymore, but whatever. I'm a huge fan of that particular series. So that's
me too.
So yeah, there we go.
I love the Gameras from the 90s are among my favorite kaiju films of all time. They're just fabulous.
They're everyone's. I mean, seriously, people want to say, if people ask, gotta wait for that. That might be a question, but
no, go ahead.
We love Heisei. I'm just saying, people want good kaiju. One of the first things we'd reach for of watch this first is Heisei Gamera trilogy. No doubt.
Right. Well, and the thing about the Gamera trilogy is that if you're introducing a modern audience to kaiju, they might not really understand the Showa era, even though that's the classics and that's what everything else is based on. But the Gamera movies, they're pretty modern. They fit in really well. They're serious and straightforward. The special effects are really strong. They're very exciting, and I think they're a perfect intro to people that that maybe don't like kaiju, or maybe you think they might not really react as well to some of the kind of earlier or even the later things like Shin Godzilla. That maybe they're not going to like that. I know we've got the American Godzilla series. And that's actually gotten quite a bit better, and I really enjoyed the recent King of the Monsters. Though, honestly, I wish they'd call it something else, because do we have to have so many things that have the same name? So you're going, okay, Google King of the Monsters. Which one? Okay, yeah, the recent one. No, the original one. So, but that aside, obviously the American stuff is easier for people to buy into in America. But I think if you're trying to show people really good films, I think that the Gamera trilogy from there and GMK from that era too is just, these are really interesting films as films, and maybe you could get people that are into monsters or even not into monsters into the films by using those as an intro.
Fair enough. There we go. All right. So that was card one. Let's get through the second question here. Okay. Let's see. Card number two. And we'll start with Steve this time. I'm just going to go back and forth here. Steve, who never appeared in a kaiju film but you wish they had?
I think I've answered this before on your show, because people that don't know, Derek actually does Classic 5 with his guests and has done it in cons and that kind of stuff with people too. So, you know, the part of me that's a classic horror fan is going to scream Peter Cushing because Peter Cushing should be in everything, right? But my really kind of weird, off-the-wall, interesting thing is I'd love to have seen Charlton Heston in a kaiju film. I think he would have been just a lot of fun. A lot of fun. The kind of Chuck Heston that was in the Omega Man or in Planet of the Apes. We're talking the, you know, full classic era Chuck Heston, I think would be a ball interacting with giant monsters. It would be really interesting to hear him say, you know, get your tentacles off me, you damn dirty yog, or whatever.
All right, I like that. All right, Anthony, what about you?
You're stumping me here on this one. Oh, I always flub actor names. I want to say Bela Lugosi, the original Dracula, just because off the top of my head, it's just like, if you get Bela and you put him in a kaiju movie, your first thought is, how would he do? What would he be doing there? And you just think, mystical wizard who has summoned the kaiju to destroy the world. And just think about how much fun he would have, just like, yes, and just, you know, like, he'd easily radiate that whole, that, you know, darkness that he did, like, as Dracula, where it's just like, I'm controlling a giant monster, and it can destroy an entire city. What will you do? And just once you think about that, it's just like, man, that would be great to see.
Think about how much fun he had wrestling that giant octopus. There you go. It's a good start.
True.
You both have mentioned actors that I adore, Cushing and Lugosi. For whatever reason, my brain immediately goes to, and I don't know why that is today, I've got John Carradine on the brain. I think he'd be a lot of fun. Again, playing that kind of, like you were saying, Anthony, that kind of Bela role where he's kind of in charge. Maybe he's a scientist trying to figure out how to do it. Maybe he's the American guy who's making his own version of an oxygen destroyer. I don't know, but I want John Carradine to face off against some giant monsters. I think that'd be a lot of fun to see. And interestingly, this question actually came up not too long ago on Monster Kid Radio. If you go into our archives over at monsterkidradio.net, for episode number 477, Anthony was a guest on that episode, but so was Kyle. And he answered this question too, and it was really cool. And I'm not going to tell you what his answer is because I want you to go listen to the episode. But he had a really cool answer as well. And I'm not just saying that because he's probably listening in right now. So, but yeah, John Carradine for me. That's what I want to see. All right, so this is a question that I had a lot of fun coming up with, but I'm going to have some difficulty answering. Anthony, what Godzilla foe would you like to see Gamera take on?
I'm going to say Megalon, just because I think Megalon needed to. I mean, just think about it. With going back to the Heisei, I've already got a plot going in my head. Go back to the Heisei Gamera backstory, where you've got Gamera being made by Atlantis. You just have the spin-off of an old warring state that they had. Atlantis and Seatopia, and you have the setup of the two champions of these lost civilizations, Megalon fighting Gamera, and you could just have them go head-to-head. And then you could have more time with Megalon, a character that doesn't get enough screen time, despite the fact that we've seen, you know, he's got there's a lot of possibility there with, you know, him becoming from an ancient civilization, you know, that has a connection with outer space. And I mean, we had I don't know one likes to talk about Final Wars, but you know, Final Wars still gave us that great reimagining and suit design for Gaiyan. When is Megalon going to get some love around here and get a new suit design for the modern age? So give him an update, have him have to bring in the story that tie back to Gamera being from Atlantis and him being their champion against the champion of Seatopia, Megalon, and you got a story there. There's a pitch for you right there.
And that's why I like having writers here playing the Classic 5, because they don't just give us answers. They have a whole plot ready to go. So somebody throw some money in Anthony to make that happen. What do you guys see?
I was going to say Gigan. Gigan really, it seems like to me that the design of the monster is very similar to kind of some of the kind of more outrageous Gamera foes that we've seen. But listening to him talk, right, left, one of these ways, listening to Anthony talk about this, it suddenly occurred to me that the idea of Atlantis versus Atlantis would be cool, and the Atlantis versus Mu would be really cool. So I would think that Gamera versus Manda would be another really cool alternative civilizations versus undersea civilizations battle between each other, and it would just be really cool, and maybe it'd be something like an idea of in an upcoming Kaiju attack book. But the idea of the undersea kingdoms battling each other really kind of appeals to me, and we got that great Manda redesign. I always missed in Destroy All Monsters the kind of dragon horns and frills and stuff that he had from his original thing. But when we saw him again in Final Wars, yeah, he was kind of ill used by the Gotengo, but the design was just incredibly cool, and seeing him kind of encircle and try to crush Gamera and that kind of stuff, it could be really fun. So either one of those two would work for me. So, but what gets me excited if I were going to write it would probably be the Manda one, which I am totally swiping the Atlantis versus Mu idea from you, Anthony.
As long as you have more than one Manda. I admit, if you had an entire nest of Mandas coming in against Gamera, then you really got a fight going on. They could all wrap around parts of his body and try to pull him apart. I mean, there you go, man. It
could be cool. I mean, he's kind of an Eastern dragon, so we don't know a lot about him. Maybe there is a family of them. Maybe some of them have different powers than the one we saw, which was basically kind of an overgrown sea serpent dragon kind of thing. There could be, more than one could be totally awesome too. The underlying civilization versus civilization thing, I think, is a really exciting idea, though. I like that a lot. Derek?
Yeah, like I said, I had a hard time coming up with this one. I thought the question was so cool, and then I tried to answer it, and I was like, oh boy. So, maybe Ibira might be kind of fun. Turtle versus whatever Ibira is. And I know Gamera's not technically a turtle, but whatever. That might be an interesting kind of... Hedorah. That's what I'd go with. I want to see Gamera take on Hedorah. Just because Hedorah is kind of ridiculous anyway. But I think that would be a fun fight. That's all I got. I don't have a story. That's what I want. So that's what I
can help you with that. I mean, seriously.
Oh, of course you can.
with what they introduced, with the idea that Gamera is here for the planet, not for the people sometimes. I mean, that's what they outlined in the Heisei trilogy. The idea that, a creature that would come from man's pollution and stuff, and Gamera would be step up to fight it, makes perfect sense.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking exactly.
Yeah, he's right. He's totally right. That would be a great foe, actually, for Gamera. And in some ways, you could just, if you wanted to reduce the smog monster, you could just drop Godzilla out of that script and drop Gamera into the script, and you don't even have to make him fly by holding his tail and spouting flame out one end, because he flies anyway, right? I have a crazy love for Smog Monster, even though I readily admit it's not one of the best Godzilla films, because it is the first Godzilla film I actually saw in its initial release and in the drive-in on top of that. So it was a cool Godzilla experience when I was a fairly young lad.
Right on. So Gadira is reminding me that I've not been paying attention to the chat. So I'm going to pop over there real quick. So we had some answers here. Before we had some answers, somebody commented about Steve and your Tingler. Steve does, in fact, have a Tingler plushie that was created by our good friend Dominique Lamses over at yeah, there it is. Dominique runs an Etsy shop called the House of Silent Graves. Just look up House of Silent Graves over on Etsy. She makes Tinglers as well as a number of other things, including a really cool Mothra that I've seen in person. It's incredibly cool. A lot Very detailed, a lot more
It's
detailed than
huge.
the Tingler. The Tingler's cool too, though. She has some other really interesting, some really neat plushies, including service dinosaurs. So look up House of Silent Graves over on Etsy. Give her a little bit of a prop or a shout out there. So to answer who should have been in a kaiju film but never was, we had the one, and I apologize, I'm going to mispronounce the name, Bodicia? Sean Connery. Sean Connery would be cool. And Deadzilla says Marilyn Monroe would have been awesome in a kaiju film.
I think there's a kaiju over there.
Ken, from our Monster Kid Radio podcast, does a lot of work with us here, recommended Clint Eastwood, The Man with No Name versus Godzilla. Justin Giallo also said Peter Cushing should have been in a kaiju film as well. Let's see here. And suddenly the chat just caught up with me. Let's see what else we have here. Gamera versus Megalon would have been awesome. That would have been cool. Let's see. Ghidorah versus Gamera versus Mechakong, says Harry Anderson. I like that one a lot. I love Mechanicon, so that'd be cool.
There's another monster that could use some more screen time. Get us some more Mechanicon here.
Right. Let's see. Andrew Roebuck. Rodan would be great in a Gamera flick. Have Gamera mistaken for a Gaios variant. I like that.
There you go.
Let's see. Let's see what else we have here. More comments about Manda. Jeff Holleran wants to see Toho revisit its version of Frankenstein in a modern format. That'd be cool. Let's see. Gamera versus Kamiba. Let's see. Hedorah was easily the biggest jerk Godzilla ever fought. So there we go. Let's see. A flying Gamera versus a flying Hedorah. See, Ken's on board with me. He said that as well. So there we go. Let's see. GFan2299 says Mechagodzilla would be fun for Gamera to fight. Gamera's at his best when he's the underdog. I agree there. All right. Let's see. And I think that brings us up to date here. So let's move on to the next question. Who were we with last? Did we start with Steve last time or Anthony? You know what? I'm just going to pick Anthony. We've had Manila or Minya. What other kaiju should have had a child or an offspring?
Great. I'm gonna go with King Caesar. If we're gonna keep talking about more monsters that need more time, more screen time, I would love to see King Caesar somehow have an entire litter of little Caesar pups. And I don't know what he'd fight or how he'd bring it into the storyline, but I don't know, just more. Think of how adorable little floppy-eared King Caesars that, basically we're looking at giant puppies on screen for a little bit of the film. And a little bit of cuteness isn't too bad. Don't make it all cuteness or else we all get cavities, but a little bit of cuteness isn't so bad.
I like that. Little puppy King Caesars. I love it. I like King Caesar a lot anyway, but now I want a bunch of little yipping Caesars going on. I love it. I love it. Steve, what do you got?
I am generally against baby monsters. I'm not a big
I know.
of. We got Baby Rodan because that was the one I was going to go for. But we had that. We had him just hatch out of the shell. So that doesn't work. I'm not a fan of Minya. I do like all Godzilla films. I should say that up front. And I can find something to enjoy in almost all of them. But Minya just never has sat well for me, whether he's Minya or Tadzilla or whatever they happen to be calling him at the time. I think it's Minya, which is fine. So we've had them. We had the Dorats for Ghidra, and they were just unbearably cute. And we've had young Gauss and a young Gamera, so we've actually had and Meganeurons for that matter. So we've actually had a whole lot of kind of baby, and Mothra. Let's not forget Mothra. We've had baby versions of a whole lot of them. So I don't know. Maybe I'll go with Anguillus or Anguirus, however they're pronouncing it currently, because I always like that monster, and that monster could stand to have more screen time. But generally, I don't like baby monsters. I'm just, I'm sorry to baby monster fans out there everywhere, but no, I want to see the full-grown monsters slugging it out with each other, and that's good with me. So there you go, Anguillus.
Okay. So I'm going through the chat here. We've got a lot of people saying Prince Caesar, which, going back to the litter of King Caesars, I like that. Let's see. We've got Baby Ghidra has come up a couple of times, and wondering how Ghidra reproduces, which is something I don't want to consider. Let's see. We've got some Titanosaurus. People have mentioned that. Let's see. Baby Baragon would be fun. Baby Anguirus would be adorbs, says Robert Sager. So let's see. We have a Kamanga comes up a little bit. Gigan.
No spiders.
Yeah.
No spiders.
Be a whole bunch of them too, right? And somebody here.
No spiders,
actually,
man. You don't want to live where I live.
Somebody actually
we don't have
mentioned,
big spiders. They're just little ones, but they're everywhere.
I can handle the little ones. It's when they get big enough you actually start to see texture in the face. I'm just like, nope. We're good.
So Ryan L has suggested Jim Henson's Kaiju Babies, which now I want to see so badly.
Hey, he did dinosaurs.
He did.
There was dinosaurs. We had the dinosaur baby. So yeah, that could totally do that. And I might even watch it because I'm such a big fan of the Henson himself when he was alive, but the Henson people generally. So I could go for that. Maybe yeah. I'll give it a chance.
Well, Jeff Rigo actually came up with what I was going to come up with, and that was Gigan needing an origin story. I want to see a baby Gigan or a smaller version of Gigan. I just think that would be unbearably adorable, but still vicious enough to kind of push back some of the diabetes-inducing cuteness that would no doubt come from something like that.
Doesn't he have the same origin as Wolverine, though?
Well, I want a miniature version of Gigan. Okay.
There you go. All right.
There are no
Use
wrong
Weapon
answers.
X in space. Space Canada.
Space Canada.
Raise your own Gigan.
Toto the baby Gamera has come up a couple of times. I like that as well. There we go. King Caesar puppies, man. You nailed it. Yeah, I think that's probably the most popular answer, Anthony. Right on. I like that a lot.
Whew, go me.
AN Productions says they want to see a sitcom with Gigan and Megalon being roommates. I'm on board. Okay. Looks like, yeah, lots more of King Ghidra and King Caesar. All right, let's move on to the next question. What do you think?
Sure.
Steve,
Yes.
what would you do with an oxygen destroyer?
Are we avoiding political ideas right now?
We probably should, just to be on the safe side.
Well, then I'm afraid. What would I do with an oxygen destroyer? I would probably have to destroy the monster that was destroying whatever place it was in. But then, yeah, I'd have to destroy the formula, and if I knew the formula, I'd have to destroy myself too, probably, because yeah, that's definitely something you don't want any of the current politicians we have getting a hold of, certainly. And although I'd certainly use it on some of the current politicians we have, but we're not getting political. So yeah, oxygen destroyer. I don't know. There's not a good use for it other than saving humanity.
And as Ryan L has just said in the chat, that got dark really fast. So,
Sorry,
Anthony, what do you think?
Lighten it up, man.
I gotta just if there's a giant monster around and we got to use it on them, we use it on a giant monster. That's unstoppable. But otherwise, the oxygen destroyer, especially for me, I actually mentioned this when the Gargantucast brought me on to talk about the original 1954 Godzilla or Gojira. At the time, you think, first time seeing it when I was younger, I was like, okay, great, it killed Godzilla. What's he so worried about? What's the damage it can do? Then you actually take the time to think about what the oxygen destroyer can do, where it actually it causes sea life to become suffocated and they can't breathe. And you think about how many countries around the world have rely on sea life as the main source of their diets, and it becomes insane what would happen if you had the oxygen destroyer. You think we forget how much we rely on the ocean to feed us and stuff, and the oxygen destroyer truly becomes one of the worst inventions ever, and you find yourself totally understanding Dr. Serizawa's decision, as you grow older, and the more you actually take the time to think about the implications of what a weapon like that would be if it existed, and they're insane. I mean, we saw in the new version of Godzilla, King of the Monsters, how right after the oxygen destroyer went off, we had a bunch of dead fish rise to the surface. You got a weapon like that made on a manufactured like assembly line, just cranking them out. I can't even imagine how much of the population would be lost because of not being able to rely on the ocean as a source of food. It's scary.
It's a weapon with no real good use other than to just get rid of some kind of even worse thing, and I suppose in some ways it's obviously analogous to the atomic bomb, and is that the only way you could stop the war? Was there a better way? And what do you do afterwards? Because this is just too terrible to do again. And Japan lived through that, and clearly that was on their minds when they were doing that. And it's like, yeah, we wish this had never been unleashed. We understand that maybe it seemed necessary, but boy, yeah, we don't want that again. And I mean, even in the newer series, it comes back and it creates a destroyer and all sorts of other complications. So there's just, I don't think there's a really moral way, in some sense, to use the oxygen destroyer other than against some kind of threat to all of humanity, like a giant monster.
I would do absolutely nothing with an oxygen destroyer. I would lock it up and forget it existed. But my favorite answer is coming from the chat, where Ken, once again, piping in with, he said to put out forest fires. Fair enough.
But that brings up another question entirely. I mean, Serizawa had the oxygen destroyer set up to be able to be used in water. I mean, if that the chemicals of water to a certain radius would stop, that the oxygen would be unable to be absorbed by the sea life and all that stuff. If we put it in a forest fire, we also risk the oxygen not only snuffing out the fire, how much of the oxygen gets sucked out of the plant life.
Right.
I mean, yes, of course, plant life, absorbs carbon dioxide and gives us oxygen, but if we're forcing it out of them, what would happen to that? They could,
in the original film, all the sea life lost its bones and its forms and disintegrated. And if you let that loose in the air on land, where does it stop? Does it stop with the trees? Are the trees left, but all their, are they just woody husks of themselves? How much havoc does it cause? Though the idea of putting out fires with it is the best one that I think anyone could probably come up with. Having said that, if that worked, maybe, yeah, if you could control it.
It's the most humane out of all of the answers.
This really did get kind of dark pretty fast. I had fun writing these questions, but then when you start to think about it, yeah. So we're going to go to something a little bit more lighthearted.
Yay.
And I forgot where we are on this.
We are on... nope.
All right, Anthony. Anthony, you're up.
What's up?
Who wins in a fight between Mechagodzilla and Jet Jaguar?
Oh, I gotta. Wait. Which Mechagodzilla are we talking about? Which
Up to
I run
you.
through them?
Up to you.
Okay. Let's see. Mechagodzilla 1, Mechagodzilla 1 versus Jet Jaguar. I'm gonna have to give it to Mechagodzilla because he's got too much. Basically, I think all Mechagodzillas have it on Jet Jaguar just because of the weapon systems available to all of them. It's just like there's too many weapons. I mean, you'd have to like reprogram a Jet Jaguar to be able to almost do like an Ant-Man level of shrink grow to truly be able to take advantage of the situation, because there's just so many different weapons between all the different generations of Mechagodzillas, finger missiles, cadmium bombs, the absolute zero cannon, the triple maser cannon it was replaced with. there's just too much firepower on a Mechagodzilla for Jet Jaguar to keep up with.
Okay, Steve, what's your take?
I'm going to disagree with him because I'm going to say in the Showa era, I think that Jet Jaguar can outfight and outmaneuver the Mechagodzilla, because we've seen that Mechagodzilla's weakness is kind of that it's controlled from afar, that it's not autonomous, that it's not really smart on its own generally. And Jet Jaguar at peak was more of an autonomous fighting machine and could actually make decisions that I think would take advantages of the weakness of the Mechagodzilla. But on the other hand, if you put Jet Jaguar up against Kiru with, the fully trained crew and all the extra weaponry and all that kind of stuff from the Millennium series, I'm thinking that Kiru, the Mechagodzilla of that era, would win. That's kind of my take on the first one. It would have been fun to see a Showa era Jet Jaguar versus Showa era Mechagodzilla. I think that would have been could have made a real movie about that. I'm not crazy about Jet Jaguar. I much prefer my pure Ultraman characters. But again, there are no Godzilla movies that I absolutely hate, no Godzilla movies that I'm not willing to enjoy something in, and that's one of the ones that I've kind of come around to in the last couple of years. It's like, yeah, once you actually get a great widescreen print of this in the original language, it's really kind of fun. It's a lot of fun. So, what about you, Derek? What are you thinking?
Well, before I answer, I want to go to the chat.
Ooh, good idea.
Ryan L says, Jet Jaguar, please. Next question. Pete Quint says, but Mechagodzilla has, in capital letters, all the weapons. Let's see. Monster Mash says Jet Jaguar. Robert Sager says Mechagodzilla would flatten Jet Jaguar. So it looks like a lot of back and forth here. ML Tharm says Mechagodzilla. Eddie Mecha G. But Ryan L points out that Jet Jaguar can just reprogram himself, Anthony. So there's that, I suppose. Let's see. And Harry Anderson says Jet Jaguar can rely on Godzilla for help. So we have that. And ML Farm actually has the best answer, and which is what I was going to rely on. Jet Jaguar, because he's got a theme song. So.
Well, actually, I still got to get through it. I'm kicking myself because I've been told it's like some of the best comics of Godzilla, but I still have to finish Godzilla Rulers of Earth, the comic series. But wasn't there a scene where Jet Jaguar actually piloted a Mechagodzilla?
I don't remember. I'd have to rely on the chat for that one.
Yeah, me too.
And that's actually something that came up in the chat too, is that Jet Jaguar just shrinks down and then starts messing with the pilots. So
there you go.
There you go. Yeah, do a little Ant-Man action, shrink down, get inside.
Yeah, I thought of that too.
Yeah. But it seems like this pretty even split here between Jet Jaguar and Mechagodzilla, which, I just want to see that fight. I wish that there was a way to get some of the Toho monsters that never really had their own spotlight to come together and just duke it out. I would love to see Jet Jaguar do some stuff. I'd like to see Hedorah do some more. Ibira, I want to see Ibira do some more action. It'd be a lot of fun to see them together. So,
comics are ideal for that, since the cost of movies is so high, and comics are actually something that you can, in theory, produce during a pandemic as well. So, maybe we'll get more. It'd be nice. It'd be fun.
That's true. So I don't know where we are. I'm sure we've done more than 5, but we still have some time. So I'm going to do another question. Cool?
Yep.
Okay. We had this question. Well, we had one of these questions earlier. I'm going to swap it. What Gamera foe do you want to see Godzilla fight, Steve?
Gauss.
Really? Just flat? Okay. There you go.
I'm a huge fan of Gauss. And I really enjoy every time they appear. He's enough like Rodan that it would be a really interesting battle. Plus, he's got the lasers and the regeneration and stuff. I think that would be awesome. In some ways, the new Americanized Rodan kind of seems more like a Gauss in a way too. So yeah, I'm going Gauss all the way. That I want to see that battle. That'd be just awesome.
Okay. Anthony, what do you have? And
Legion.
What's your plot synopsis?
Legion. Another alien invasion of Legion are sent probably by Space Hunter M, and they think that if Godzilla has multiple foes to take on, he'll be at a disadvantage. But I mean, that Legion was only defeated because of got Gamera absorbing large amounts of mana from across the world and just blasting Legion away. I'm wondering, I'm thinking you're gonna have to bring in Burning Godzilla if you want to be able to take him down.
And we did kind of get Burning Godzilla in the recent U.S. version, so there is that possibility. So that'd be fun. Yeah, that'd be great.
So normally I'd go over to the chat just to kind of stall and try to come up with an answer, but I had already decided I was going to say Legion as well. I love Legion. Legion is one of my absolute favorite kaiju from that era, and just period. I love the idea of taking the human form and distorting it, even though it's still a guy in a suit, or in Legion's case, I think it's two guys in a suit, isn't it? And it just looks cool. And just to have that go up against Godzilla, it feels suddenly a little bit more like an alien threat, because it's not just a humanoid, big sized humanoid that he's going after. It's something that is really alien looking. And he's just cool. I like Legion a lot. So that's where I'd go too.
I got to confirm, but I think they had like a Biollante level team of just, I think there's like 2 people in the suit, but I think there's like 2 or 3 others that are connected. That were doing all the movements of all the different things around. I mean,
yep.
Exactly. It's a lost art. I mean, seriously, a good Biollante or Legion, where it's just, they look ominous because, everything, there's a team doing it all at once. And, it's a lost art. I mean, yes, we could do something similar with computers, but at the same time, it's just like, you can feel how much movement is going on right there, and it just seems unnatural, but at the same time, the unnatural element sells it, and I look forward to when we actually have something like that again.
Well, and when you see the behind the scenes and that stuff, it's just amazing. It's just like, wow, look at all those people running the hydraulics, running the puppetry, running the suit itself. It's just kind of amazing. And since you mentioned Biollante back, flashing to the Gamera versus Biollante would be a really cool Godzilla versus Gamera too. That would be a hellacious fun movie to watch. It'd be a blast. I'd really like that.
Yeah, I think it'd be a lot of fun. We're getting a lot of people saying Legion as well. Baragon's come up a couple of times. Virus would be, but that was said with an LOL, so I don't know if they're being serious or not. Let's see, Geiger. There you go. But yeah, a lot of Legion. A lot of Legion. So I'm going to put in the chat the link to the House of Silent Graves if you want to pick up your own Tingler, and I'll also put a link in the chat to where you can pick up your own copy of the Classic 5 cards. Right now, the Kaiju expansion is still being proofed, but I expect that to be approved within the next couple of days. Right now, you can get the core deck and the Hammer Films expansion deck, but if you head over there, within the next couple of days, you'll see the Kaiju deck available as well. We're slowly winding down here, so I intentionally set this card aside for the last question. So let's see. Steve's the one that's not on mute right now, so I'm going to go to Steve. Final question. Who or what is on your personal Kaiju Mount Rushmore?
Ooh, okay. Well, you've got Godzilla, you've got Gamera, you've got Rodan, and I'm going to put Mothra up there too. I know that there's probably some people that think Ghidorah should be 3 of the heads of 4 on Mount Rushmore, but for me, you've got to go with the original classics plus the usurper being Gamera. So Godzilla, Gamera, Rodan, Mothra. That's for me right now until someone changes my mind. So what do you think, Anthony? You got another idea? You want to change my mind on that?
I'll agree with you with Godzilla and Gamera, but the other 2 have to go to King Kong because of you got to give respect to one of the characters that started it all, and the other person you got to give it up to is Ultraman. And Ultraman doesn't. It needs to be on there. I don't know who does.
That's a good answer. Now, see, I don't put King Kong in that because I always think of him as stop motion more than anything else. If I were dip into the stop motion, I would put Kong up there, and I'd also put the Beast from 20,000 Fathoms, without whom, none of this would have been possible. So, yeah, if we're going to dip into that, that'd be that. I do know that, yes, there is obviously the Japanese King Kong, but for me, that's never lived up to the Willis O'Brien King Kong. That's personal preference, and I'm really looking forward to the new Godzilla versus Kong coming out. I've enjoyed the prequel movies to that, and I'm looking forward to seeing how it works out when they probably team up and battle each other and then team up, because isn't that what always happens in the superhero stories? You fight first and then you team up against the bigger menace. So we're just going to have to see how it comes out next year, I guess, maybe.
Who knows?
We're lucky. Who knows? But I'm looking forward to it in any case.
All right, I'm going to hop over. Well, I'm going to hop over the chat first. I already know what my answers are, but I'm going to hop to the chat here. Ken says Godzilla, Mothra, Ghidorah, and Rodan. Maleficking says Godzilla, Gamera, King Kong, and Rhedosaurus. Monster Mash. It looks like Godzilla's going to be in everybody's answers here, but Monster Mash says Godzilla, Mothra, Rodan, and King Kong. Ryan L says, you know who could sculpt his own face into a Mount Rushmore? Jet Jaguar. Let's see. We've got a Godzilla 54, Mothra, Rodan, and Gamera. Let's see. Maleficking says Ultraman isn't quite a monster, but would still like to see him included anyway. Let's see. Peter Quint, Godzilla, Gamera, King Kong, Ultraman, Mothra. Lots of Mechanicon. I'm sorry, not Mechanicon. Mechagodzilla is listed. Hedorah, Gigan, and Ghidorah. Okay, Gaios. Okay. So for me, and I intentionally wrote this question this way. The question specifically is who or what is on your personal Mount Rushmore for Kaiju, and I went with the who. And I'm going to recognize the people who brought us this particular genre and made it great. So I would go with Eiji Tsuburaya, Ashira Honda, Akira Takarada. Those kinds of people. But that's only 3.
Yeah, you got one more.
Ashira Honda. Did I say Ashira Honda? I did.
I think you did.
I should have wrote this down because I knew I was going to end this question. Ashira Honda, Akira Takarada, Eiji Tsuburaya. Oh, and the music guy.
Right, yeah. Exactly.
The guy who did the music. Yeah.
Right, who we're all spacing out on his name right now.
Akira Fukube.
There we go.
I don't think you could have the Kaiju genre. I'm going to call it a genre. I know sometimes I call it subgenre on the show, but I don't think you can have the Kaiju genre without those 4. You got to have them. Although Kaiju Cast is saying Minya should be in there. And Andrew Roebuck says Kyle Yount should be on the Mount Rushmore of Kaiju. Okay, fair enough. Kyle has done a lot for the Kaiju community. Now, this panel... Yeah, go ahead.
Since Ultraman came up, I know we're probably not doing a lot of commercial plugs, but the Movie Spree is selling full seasons of Ultraman for $7.10.
Is that still going on?
It was going on last night, so people may want to check it out. It's a good chance to pick up. They've got at least 8, maybe 10 seasons of various Ultra shows that you can pick up, and for $7.10 for HD stream, that's amazing. So big Ultra fan here, and glad to see some of the shows I've never seen before.
Yeah, I know that Ultraman Day was on Friday, and I know it's come up a couple of times throughout Kaiju Online, and it looks like as of right now it is still a sale. So hop on over there and pick up some Ultraman.
Oh, grab it.
Awesome.
They look great.
Yeah, I actually ran out of time. I was going to ask an Ultraman question, but it's coming up on 4:50, and that's when we're slotted to go till. So before we wrap up, once again...
It's when we turn back into Hayata. At least I do. Maybe you turn back into a different guy.
The color timer's going off.
That's right. Yeah, to go back to Ultraman. There we go.
Right here.
Anthony, the 2 books that you have on display, the Handbook to Surviving a Giant Monster Attack and Manos versus Santa Claus Conquers the Martians. They are available on Amazon. I tried not to say that so disappointingly. I actually really like the book. I'm sorry about that. Promote yourself. Yep. You do it better than I do.
These books are both Santa Claus Conquers Manos, the Hands of Fate, and the Handbook for Surviving a Giant Monster Attack are on Amazon. Check me out on my Twitter, at Anthony Wendel, on Twitter. And there's a couple links in there to my work. I've got a coffee page. Hey, buy me some coffee. I like coffee. And I'm just, I'll try to hop on Monster Kid Radio once in a while and let everyone know what my next project is. I've got work going. It's just got to wait for some things to be picked up. And if you want, I do drop an article once in a while over at monkeysfightingrobots.com or the media side of it, popaxiom.com.
All right, and Steve, you've got a website at stevendsullivan.com, stsullivan.com, and 1,000 other URLs, right?
Right, yeah. I have a huge number of URLs. I've got one probably for each book, and since I have more than 50 books, there's a whole lot of them. Kaiju Attack is one, but that'll take you to a Facebook page dedicated to giant monsters and Kaiju Attack, and that is Kaiju Attack. The giant monster book. I've also got a Manos book. You can find out about it on my site on manosfilm.com. Or if you just want to join up and support me in an ongoing way, join my Patreon. We're starting the second book of the Frost Arrow series. We just finished the first book, and before that, Dr. Cushing, which will be out in print and ebook form soon, Dr. Cushing's Chamber of Horrors, with cover by amazing artist Mark Maddox. If you want to support me in Patreon, that's paysteve.com. So very easy to remember. And I'll be on MKR next time Derek asks me. We've got the Rally Awards coming up sometime soon, I'm sure, as well as other cool stuff. Always a good week in Monster Kid Radio.
Sounds good. Yes, they will both be on future episodes of Monster Kid Radio. I definitely want to talk about some more kaiju stuff and giant monster stuff, and maybe even some spider movies with Anthony. Kidding. As well as having Steve on in the future for the Monster Kid Radio Retro Rally Awards, where we honor the best in genre cinema of the 30s, 40s, and 50s, which is what we do every week on Monster Kid Radio over at monsterkidradio.net. And like I said, on every episode, we do play around of the Classic Five. Sometimes we're not joined by Godzilla, but here we are. This time we are. And it's always a lot of fun. It's probably one of my favorite things that we do on the show. And it's only awesome because I get to play it with some awesome people. Please check us out over at monsterkidradio.net when you have some time, when you're done with listening and going through Kaiju Online. Once again, Kyle, thank you for having us on. Thanks for making us part of this incredible event. You, sir, are the man.
You're the man. Stay safe, play safe, everybody. Live long and prosper.
Peace and love, everybody.
Ciao.